My phone lit up with a vibration so sharp it cut through the stillness of my apartment. I wasn't expecting anything, maybe a work reminder or a delivery notification. But the moment I saw the preview of the message, my breath snagged. "We need distance from you. Please stop contacting us completely." No warning, no softening. Just a cold, clinical sentence glowing against the dimness of my tiny living room like a flare shot into the night. For a moment, I didn't move. The walls around me felt too close, the quiet too heavy. It wasn't the kind of silence people imagine when they think of peace. This one was sharp, echoing, heavy, like standing inside the pause after a slammed door. I reread the line, once, twice. It didn't change. My own family. The people I'd rearranged entire paychecks for. The people whose emergencies dictated my calendar, my routines, my life. I think part of me waited for a second message, something that softened the blow, hinted at a misunderstanding, offered even a sliver of warmth. But nothing came. Just that one line, crisp and final. I stood there barefoot on the cool floor, feeling something inside me tilt, not break, not crack, but shift. A quiet click, like a lock sliding into place. The kind of clarity that doesn't come from understanding, but from exhaustion, finally giving up its fight. I didn't cry, I didn't call, I didn't pace the room like I normally would when guilt or panic sank its claws into me. Instead, with a stillness that scared even me, I typed the calmest reply of my life. "Okay, I understand. That was it. No explanation, no bargaining, no apology that I didn't owe." Just 3 words that felt like opening a window in a room that had been sealed shut for years. They had no idea what that moment cost them, what it cost me. They thought they were handing me a punishment. They had no idea they were handing me my freedom. The screen dimmed, and I stared at my reflection faintly outlined in the black glass. A woman with tired eyes. A woman who'd spent years being the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who kept everything running even when her own life barely had space to breathe. I'd always believed stability was something you earned by staying quiet, staying useful, staying agreeable. I'd built my life like a spreadsheet. Tidy columns, color-coded order, everything in its place. My apartment mirrored that soft lighting, clean counters, everything chosen for its simplicity. Nothing extravagant, nothing chaotic. And yet, here in the middle of all that order, my family's message sat like a crack through glass. Before I tell you what happened next, before the unraveling, the confrontation, the truth, I want you to know one thing. My name is Maeve Whitlock, and I spent most of my life carrying weight that was never mine to hold. Silence is a strange creature. It doesn't just sit in a room, it presses against your ribs, crawls up your throat, settles behind your eyes like smoke. After their message, my apartment didn't feel empty. It felt evacuated, like something had exploded and everything living had fled. I kept staring at that single line on my phone. "We need distance from you. Please stop contacting us completely." My own blood, speaking to me like I was a stranger who'd crossed a boundary I didn't even know existed. The worst part wasn't their words. It was how cleanly they cut. No argument, no lead-up, no warning signs. Just a surgical removal. Like I'd been a problem they finally found the courage to discard. I didn't cry. Not out of strength, out of shock. I walked to the kitchen, opened the tap, and waited for the water to warm. But it never did. The pipes groaned, the light above the sink flickered, and suddenly the whole place felt too small. Like the walls were leaning in to check if I would break the way they expected me to. That's when the memories started creeping back. The little ones that hurt more than the big ones. Birthdays where I made them laugh. Late-night phone calls where they leaned on me. Moments where I thought this is what family is supposed to feel like. Those memories, now twisted and cold, pressed against the back of my skull. My phone buzzed again. For a split second, my heart tripped. Maybe they regretted it. Maybe someone else grabbed the phone. Maybe it was a mistake. But it was just an automated bill reminder. Funny how reality stays unbothered while your world falls apart. I sank onto the couch, the fabric rough against my palms. I kept imagining what led them to send that message. A meeting? A conversation? A shared frustration that grew behind my back? Did they rehearse it? Was someone proud they finally did the right thing? Did any of them hesitate? The human mind can torture itself better than any enemy can. And still I didn't call. I didn't text. Not because I agreed. Because something inside me, something I didn't even know I had, whispered, if they can throw you away this easily, let them. But silence is never truly silent. It mirrors everything you try to ignore. I remembered all the times I let their moods dictate my day, all the times I stayed quiet to keep the peace, all the times I apologized first, always first, because I couldn't stand the tension. I used to think that meant strength. Now I saw it for what it was. Fear. Fear of losing people who never feared losing me. I wasn't angry yet. Anger comes later, when the numbness dissolves. Right then, I was only empty. Hours passed. I didn't move much, just sat there, replaying the scene again and again. Not the message itself, but the moment I read it, the way the room darkened around me, the way the sound fell out of the air, the way something in my chest quietly folded. It wasn't grief. Grief is loud and messy. This was quieter, more deliberate. A slow, sinking realization that the people you would have fought the world for wouldn't even flinch while pushing you out of theirs. I didn't tell anyone. Not a friend, not a coworker. This wasn't the kind of pain you pass around like gossip. This was the kind that sits with you, legs folded, waiting for you to look it in the eye. When I finally stood, my legs trembled, like the floor had shifted while I wasn't looking. I placed my phone face down on the table, not to avoid the message. I'd memorized it by then, but because I needed the room to breathe again. I walked toward the window and opened it. Cold air rushed in, sweeping across my skin, waking something buried beneath the shock. Something that had been quiet for too long. Not rage, not revenge. Just awakening. They thought I would beg. They thought they'd see the familiar pattern. Me bending, me shrinking. Me trying to earn my place back at a table that had never offered me a real seat. But something had shifted. When they cut me off, they didn't just end a chapter. They unlocked a part of me I had spent years keeping small. I didn't reply again. I didn't chase them. I didn't scroll up to reread the conversation. I just stood there by the open window, feeling the first breath of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom, uninvited but unmistakable. They thought distance would silence me. They had no idea it would do the opposite. And as I closed the window, as the night settled around me like a witness, I realized the cost they would pay for that message wouldn't come from rage. It would come from clarity. Because the person who walked through the next day would not be the same one they pushed away. Not anymore. Morning came without permission. The sun pushed through the blinds like it didn't care that the ground beneath me had shifted. The world outside kept moving. Cars passing, kids shouting on their way to school, someone arguing on the phone in the hallway. Life didn't pause for my heartbreak. It never does. I woke up with that hollow feeling in my chest, the kind that doesn't hurt sharply, but pulls, like a bruise you forgot about until someone presses it. For a few seconds, I forgot everything. My mind was blank, soft, almost peaceful. Then the memory hit. That message. Those words. That finality. It was like getting punched twice, once by reality, and once by the fact that I'd survived the first punch at all. My phone was still where I'd left it, face down. I didn't touch it. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up checking for missed calls, family group messages, little obligations wrapped in emojis. The silence wasn't loud anymore. It was deliberate. It belonged to me. My apartment looked different in daylight, less claustrophobic, almost mine. I walked to the mirror and froze. Not because I looked bad, because I looked unfamiliar. Like I'd stepped into the life of someone who had lost something she didn't yet understand. I washed my face slowly, letting the cold water sharpen the edges of my thoughts. Grief has a strange relationship with routine. Every normal action feels like a betrayal, like you're supposed to fall apart instead of brushing your teeth. But I kept going. I made tea. I opened the window again. I sat at the table with my hands wrapped around the warm cup. That's when the real questions began. Did they talk about me? All of them? Did they agree? Was someone hesitant? Did anyone defend me? Did they think about how that message would land? Or did they just want peace for themselves? That last question stung the most. People say they want distance because they need peace, but nobody asks what peace costs the person being pushed away. Nobody wonders how many times that person held things together silently, for years, so others could stay comfortable. The tea cooled before I even tasted it. By noon, something strange happened. I didn't feel weaker. I felt clearer. All the years I had spent chasing approval, smoothing over problems, absorbing blame, shrinking so others could feel big, it washed over me all at once. And for the first time, I could see it without excuses attached. Their message wasn't the beginning of something painful. It was the conclusion of something that had been wrong for a long time. I grabbed my jacket and stepped outside. The air felt different, sharper, like the world had snapped into focus. I walked without purpose, letting the streets guide me. Maybe I was escaping the apartment. Maybe I was escaping the echo of their rejection. Or maybe, without realizing it, I was walking toward myself. I passed a bakery with fogged-up windows, the smell of fresh bread spilling onto the sidewalk. Mothers pushing strollers, a couple holding hands, an old man feeding pigeons like he did every morning. Everything ordinary felt suddenly extraordinary. Maybe because I wasn't performing for anyone. Maybe because the world was finally mine to interpret without their voices in my head. At a crosswalk, I stopped. Not because of traffic, because I realized something quietly devastating. If they hadn't texted me, I never would have stopped to ask myself why I was always the one trying so hard. I never would have questioned why I tolerated so much. I never would have recognized how deeply I'd disappeared inside their expectations. Their silence gave me space. Their distance gave me perspective. Their rejection gave me a mirror. I didn't feel grateful, not yet, but I wasn't broken either. I walked into a small park and sat on a bench under a tree with leaves just starting to turn. A child's laughter floated through the air, sharp, pure, intact. I closed my eyes and let the sound settle in my bones. For the first time in a long time, I felt something that wasn't pain. Possibility. Not happiness, possibility. The sense that my story wasn't ending. It was beginning. And then, as if my own mind wanted to remind me what had been taken, a thought rose slowly, quietly. They think they removed me from their lives, but what they really did was free me from their version of me. When I opened my eyes again, the world didn't look the same. I didn't either. This was the first day without them. And it was the first day I started to see who I could become without their shadows clinging to me. By evening, all the clarity I'd gained throughout the day began stirring into something heavier. Something that tasted like realization and resentment mixed together. Like truth finally stepping out of the shadows. Because here's what my family never understood. I wasn't the difficult one. I was the dependable one. The one who showed up when everyone else was busy. The one who remembered birthdays no one bothered to acknowledge in return. The one who apologized first, even when I wasn't wrong. The one who carried stories that weren't mine, secrets that weren't mine, guilt that wasn't mine. Every single time. But families like mine don't see the quiet ones. Not really. They only see the outcome of your silence. They see the help, not the exhaustion behind it. They see the patience, not the boundaries you had to swallow to maintain peace. They see the understanding, not the storm inside you they never asked about. As I sat by the window, watching the streetlights blink into life, I let those truths rise, unchallenged for the first time. I traced the rim of my mug with my thumb, feeling the weight of years I'd spent fitting myself into shapes that made everyone else comfortable. I remembered the time I lent money I didn't have, the time I drove across town at midnight, the time I forgave something unforgivable because they convinced me family comes first. Family comes first, except when I needed anything. Then suddenly I was too emotional, too sensitive, too much, too dramatic, too involved, too distant, too quiet, too loud, too everything except appreciated. I used to think if I tried harder, they'd see me. If I kept the peace long enough, they'd love me the way I loved them, fully, without hesitation. But sitting there alone in the hush between cars passing, I realized something chilling. They didn't want to understand me. They wanted access to me. They wanted my time, not my truth. My help, not my hurt. My stability, not my boundaries. And when I finally slipped, when I finally got tired, when I finally stopped bending, they labeled it distance. A polite word. A clean word. A word that hides the mess they created. We need distance from you. The message echoed again, sharper now, like a blade I could finally see clearly. Not because I had done something unforgivable, but because I stopped being convenient. That realization didn't break me. It woke me. I stood, pacing slowly across the room, the floor cool against my steps. My reflection in the window looked different, more solid, more real, more mine. The version of me that had always been pushed aside for their comfort was finally rising to the surface. Their message wasn't a boundary. It was an escape. But not for them. For me. They thought they were cutting me off. They didn't know they were cutting me loose. As I stared out at the city lights, a strange, steady warmth filled my chest. Not joy, not hope. Something deeper. Resolve. The kind that comes when you finally understand your own worth without needing anyone else to confirm it. The kind that says, if you want distance, I won't fight you. But don't expect me to wait where you left me. This was the moment the story shifted. The moment the balance of power quietly, irrevocably tilted, and they had no idea. Days passed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just steadily. A new rhythm took shape in my life. Soft at first, like the faint hum of something rebuilding itself. I didn't realize it was happening until I woke up one morning and didn't immediately think of them. Didn't check my phone with that old ache. Didn't rehearse conversations in my mind that would never happen. It was like my heart finally stopped knocking on a door that would never open. I started doing small things for myself. Nothing grand, nothing Instagram-worthy. Just things I had kept putting off because my energy was always being pulled in their direction. I bought a plant I wasn't sure I could keep alive. I cooked a meal just for me without rushing. I sat in silence without feeling punished by it. Piece by piece, I reclaimed space I didn't even know I had lost. At work, people noticed I laughed more. At home, I noticed I breathed deeper. Even the mirror seemed kinder. Healing sneaks up on you like that. Quiet, not flashy. It whispers before it ever shouts. One evening, nearly 2 weeks after their message, I got a call from an unknown number. I knew immediately. You don't love people for years and fail to recognize the pattern of their timing. I let it ring, not out of anger, not out of pride, but because I no longer lived at the emotional address where they last left me. The voicemail came through a minute later, tentative, confused, wrapped in the same subtle entitlement they always carried. Maeve, can we talk? I think maybe we said things too quickly. Too quickly, as if their decision hadn't been carved into a sentence sharp enough to draw blood. As if they hadn't thrown me out of the orbit of my own family with a single message. But that's the thing about people who expect you to stay small. They panic when you grow. I didn't call back. Not because I wanted revenge or because I enjoyed the silence, but because I finally understood something that would have saved me years of pain. Some doors aren't meant to be reopened, not because hate lives behind them, but because you do. I stood by the window, watching the city breathe under the streetlights. And for the first time, I didn't feel alone. I felt aligned. Every moment of confusion, every night I lay awake replaying their words, every question that carved itself into me, it all led here, to this version of myself. Steady, whole, unapologetic. They thought losing them would break me. Instead, it handed me back to myself. And somewhere, deep in the quiet of that night, I whispered a truth that didn't need witnesses. I am not the person you tried to shrink. I am the person I became when you stopped trying. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was mine. And for the first time in a long, long time, that was enough.